Hello? Dad?
Kill all the gods.
Welcome back to another Essential Movie. Today we will take a look at the story called The Black Coat's Daughter. Watch out, spoilers ahead. Illustrating how loneliness and traumas turn into fears that cling to one's existence through multiple timelines, the film opens with the scenes of prestigious Catholic boarding school named Bramford School in upstate New York, where students are preparing to be picked up by their parents for academic break. A young girl named Catherine from the school's freshman batch is seen sleeping in her room. Kathy is a distant and introverted little girl who has a recurring nightmare. Every night, she sees her father showing her a smashed car in the snow, saying that her mom crashed the car and has died. What's worse than getting haunted and traumatized by one's parents dying like that? Kathy wakes up to a trauma that she doesn't talk about. She marks the dates on the calendar, anticipating getting picked up by her parents before the holidays. Now, in a close-up shot of the calendar, we see that Kathy's parents pick her up for vacations on separate dates, implying they're divorced. But unlike the first pickups, Kathy's parents are going to pick her up together this time. Little does Kathy know what's ahead of her. Scenes shift to Father Brian's cabin, who calls Kathy to deliver the sad news. He politely tells Kathy that her parents will not be able to attend her annual performance since they are caught up with work. He also delivers to Kathy that she will be spending the vacations at the school since her parents are long gone. After hearing the news, Kathy reacts completely contrary to what Father Brian was expecting. She starts looking at the corner and starts laughing. Kathy is scaring Father Brian for sure. After Kathy's side of the story, a senior student named Rose is introduced. Rose is getting her photo shoot done. In the first timeline, Rose feels sick and consults two of her caretaking nuns, Mrs. Drake and Ms. Prescott. She asks them for medicinal help. Rose goes to catch up with her friend Lizzie. Through their conversation, it is revealed that Rose might be pregnant with her boyfriend Rick, with whom she's not on good terms. Rose is a real baddie for violating the Catholic school's strict policies by committing adultery. At the annual function, their headmaster, Mr. Gordon, gives a lengthy speech and makes a successful attempt of boring everyone in the hall. Kathy also performs the annual performance. For some strange reason, Kathy keeps forgetting the lyrics and stutters as she blindly looks in front of her, which is the view of plain sight. She eventually finishes the show and ends the function. Kathy is experiencing some supernatural activities which she is refusing to tell. At the end of the annual function, everyone gets picked by their parents and they head back home for a week, except Kathy and Rose. That's suspicious. When both Kathy and Rose's parents fail to pick them up before the break, Rose confesses that she thought the vacation started on Friday, 2 days after the actual vacation. So she unintentionally gave her parents the wrong date but doesn't disclose it. She wants to delay them until she can tell her boyfriend, Rick, about the pregnancy. Whereas Kathy is confused and upset since her parents didn't show up. She calls her father again, but doesn't get any response. Mr. Gordon, the headmaster, jokes that their parents will eventually show up since they can't live there forever. Kathy is visibly upset, and the two nuns who are acting as chaperones reassure her that everything's fine and promise to keep calling her parents. Since the week is off for students, Mr. Gordon also takes the week off to blow some stress. He leaves the girls with the nuns and asks them to take good care of the girls. Instead, the nuns ask Rose to watch over Kathy that night. That night, Kathy goes to Rose's room, only to find out that she's sneaking out with her boyfriend. Now is the perfect time to drop the pregnancy bomb. When Kathy protests, Rose tries to unnerve her by telling her a story about the nuns at the school being devil worshippers and that their heads were shaved so they wear wigs to this day. She leaves Kathy alone and gets in the car with her boyfriend. Kathy sees Rose speed away with Rick from Rose's room window. She then begins messing around with Rose's stuff. While she's at it, Kathy hears a payphone ringing in the hall and picks it up. Since Catherine's alone with the devil-worshipping nuns, dark times are soon to be unleashed. Now the second timeline starts with a girl named Joan. Joan gets off a bus in upstate New York and cleans herself up in the bus station bathroom. As she checks her reflection in the mirror, she gets haunting flashbacks of the time when she was being put to bed by a dozen nurses in the psych ward. Joan is a mental patient who has successfully managed to escape the asylum. Oh no, please don't be the baddie here. Joan takes off the asylum's tag, which was wrapped around her wrist. She then picks up a map and decides to choose a new location to move to. She settles in Portsmouth, a suburb in Queensland, Australia. She attempts to make a call on a payphone, but the number she calls has been disconnected. As she waits outside for the next bus, she's noticed by an old man named Bill who offers her a ride, much to the annoyance of his wife, Linda. The couple asks Joan for her location. Linda and Bill tell Joan that they will drop her by the Bramford stop since that was their destination. Portsmouth was one bus stop ahead. Bothered by cold, Joan takes the offer and leaves the station with them. At this point, our gut says Joan is going to do something horrible to the couple. The timeline shifts back to Rose's. Once dropped back at the school by her boyfriend, Rose goes to the bathroom and hears strange noises coming from the boiler room and goes to investigate. When she looks through a window in the door, she sees Kathy sitting in front of the lit boiler and talking to herself or perhaps performing a ritual. Rose's skin must have turned inside out to see the little Kathy. Timelines switch back to Joan, who awakens in a motel room. It is revealed that Joan had slept in Bill's car for 4 hours, so he decides to stop and get her rest in a proper room. As she wraps herself in the towel, a bullet scar on her shoulder becomes visible. She gets a flashback of a priest and a police officer who shoots her in a very chaotic state. Now we know how she got her scar. Bill knocks and tells Joan the reason he picked her up is that she reminds him of someone. He invites her to have dinner with him at the restaurant next door, where he shows Joan a picture of Rose, who is revealed to be his daughter. He explains she died 9 years ago. Joan excuses herself and goes to the bathroom, where she giggles and has a memory of killing a woman and stealing her identification card. Joan sees Bill talking to a cop and steals a knife from a bus tray. Bill tells her they have to hit the road to beat an impending storm, and Joan goes to the car where Linda is waiting. Linda tells Joan that Bill sees Rose in every young girl, but that she doesn't see Rose in Joan at all. At this point, it's hard to tell whose case is the worse, Joan the psychopath, the dead Rose, or the mysterious things happening to Kathy. Back to Rose's timeline, Rose tucks Kathy in and tries to reassure her that her parents are on their way. Kathy tells Rose she knows her parents are dead, which disturbs Rose. Rose goes back to her room and bars her door with a chair in fear of being intruded on. Rose awakens and goes to breakfast with the 2 chaperones and Kathy. Kathy begins to act strangely and is unable to pray. When one of the chaperones begins to scold her, Kathy stands up and vomits. As they try to nurse her, she lashes out at them. Mr. Gordon rings to tell them he will be coming back to the school. It is implied that Kathy's parents had indeed died in a car crash. Now how Kathy has foreseen her parents' death and is acting all weird is straight up scary and disturbing. Later on, the women ask Rose to shovel the driveway for her. After shoveling, Rose tries to re-enter the chaperone's house, but the doors are locked, so she returns to her dorm room. When Mr. Gordon arrives at the house, he is accompanied by a police officer. Upon entering the house, Mr. Gordon grasps his face in horror. In a flashback, Kathy is seen answering the payphone and hears a demonic voice on the other end, which she calls Dad. It tells her that her parents aren't coming, and to kill everyone. Later, Kathy is seen stabbing the 2 chaperones to death. Dark forces have made Kathy a psychotic killer. While one of the victims crawls along the floor, mortally wounded, Kathy casually walks upstairs and returns with 2 pillowcases. She then finishes the job. Rose goes to the bathroom and gets her period, sighing in relief. She hears someone enter the bathroom but tends to ignore that and leaves. When she goes to the dorm stairwell, she sees 2 bloody heads wrapped in pillowcases and hurries back to the hall. Kathy appears and stabs Rose to death before decapitating her. The police officer finds Kathy in the boiler room, kneeling in front of the lit boiler and surrounded by the heads of her 3 victims. She stands and begins to yell, "Hail Satan." When she fails to drop the knife, the cop shoots her in the shoulder. The sight of Kathy and chopped heads is just gut-wrenching. Joan, on the other hand, is in the car with Bill and Linda. Linda reveals to Joan that Rose was brutally murdered 9 years earlier and decapitated. Joan says she's going to be sick, and Bill pulls over. Joan then slashes Bill's throat and stabs Linda to death. She cuts off their heads and puts them in a suitcase which she carries to the boarding school, now all boarded up. Father Brian visits Kathy, now revealed to be a younger Joan, in the psych ward and performs an exorcism. Kathy sees a shadowed demonic figure. She asks it to stay with her, but it disappears. In the present day, Joan enters the boiler room with the suitcase only to find the boiler dark and cold. She exits the school and looks back at it. She begins to sob, realizing she is truly alone. Here the film ends. In this film, multiple timelines run parallel to each other, which make the story pretty confusing at first. As the movie progresses, things begin to fall into place. The character build-up is marvelous, and we can easily observe the transition from an innocent to a dark, demented personality. The atmosphere plays a major role in establishing the eeriness associated with the movie. Pair it with excellent acting, and you get a masterpiece. This film is not everyone's cup of tea since it needs quite a lot of patience and appreciation of slow burn horror. With that being said, if you are more into cryptic horror, where the supernatural entity is unseen till the end and left up to your imagination to carve out, this is an amazing watch. Thank you for watching another Essential Movie. Please like and subscribe if you liked the video.